My name is Arin Lindauer, and you're listening to A Life Without Struggle. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 wonderful children, a 2-time best-selling author, and a highly driven and successful entrepreneur. In my 17-plus year career as a mindset and health expert, I know what holds women back from a life you only dream about. Whether you're a CEO, a businesswoman, or executive, I started this podcast because I have been where you are, and I know you want and deserve more out of your life. I believe women are limitless. We just get lost along the way. The process to get you there is the topic and purpose of this podcast. When you understand what you want, you can truly step into a life without struggle. Welcome, and I'm so thankful you're here. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Struggle. My name is Arin Lindauer, and today's topic is why ambitious women hit a wall in their health during midlife. Okay, there's no shortage of women here in their 40s, 50s that come into my DMs or I jump on a call with, and you're just frustrated. You're tired. You've been holding it together for too long, and you feel like, man, reasonably speaking, I had things going in the right direction, and then all of a sudden it's just like nothing will work. And so you're the leader, right? You're the leader at work, you're the glue in your home, and the keeper of all these schedules we have ever imagined. You're the keeper of all the emotions that everyone is having at any given moment, and responsibilities. And so, okay, what's happened? Well, we've forgotten about ourselves for a hot minute, and we've been riding on E for quite a while. Anybody else kind of play Russian roulette with that number and see how far you can actually go? I know, right? So, okay, there's a silent truth that's actually going on for women in this space, and it's your ambition doesn't protect your hormones. One of the biggest things that we need to understand as high achieving women is we think we can just outwork everything. We think we can do it all. And this is left to our own demise of stress, exhaustion, you've got the aging, and even honestly, your biology. But in midlife, your hormonal system, it becomes our boss, okay? So pretty much it dictates how we feel, sometimes how we look, and it overrides everything, because here's what happens is you have estrogen, you have progesterone, you have testosterone, and they honestly begin to shift. And when they begin to shift, the body becomes less forgiving. Okay, so it's less forgiving of poor sleep, stress. It's less forgiving of low muscle. And so this is where you can't just keep hustling, and you can't hustle your way to better results. You need a new strategy. And this is where I want to go with this, because this is an absolute trap for women at this phase of your life. You're just that constant doing more. And this is where I've talked about this. Like in our 20s, we had no clue, right? In our 30s, that's when like life started to come together for us. You know, maybe we met our partner, maybe we had some kids in there, we finished school, we're rocking in our career. And I mean, like 30s is where we kind of were like, okay, I can do this all, until we can't. And then things start to burn down. From what I've experienced, it was late 30s, but from all the women that I have the opportunity to speak to, it's 40s, it's 50s, and, you know, heaven forbid if we just let ourselves go all the way into our 60s, but it's never too late. That's a really important message that I want to share, is it's never too late. You know, I just spoke with a woman who is in her 60s, and all we need to do is make some absolute tweaks to her resistance training, dial in her food just a little bit more. And man, she is going to love her look. And especially when, you're that glue for grandkids now and supporting your children at a whole different level. I was talking with another client in their 60s and, we were visualizing her at 85. Like, how cool is that to think forward that much, that you have certain things that are really, really important to you, and it requires a change and a shift in your health. Because we have this trap of we think we just need to do more. And that's the problem with all my ambitious type A driven women, is our default is to push harder, do more, restrict more. And, it's all going to work itself out. And here's what I'm going to tell you is the more cardio equals more cardio is going to equal slower metabolism. More stress means more cortisol. More restriction disrupts your hunger signals. More perfection fuels just this all or nothing mentality. Man, I talk to women time and time again about this. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but I get it because I've certainly been there in my life. And the bigger message that I have to share with women is what we used to do at 25 will absolutely sabotage your results at 45. And so hopefully this message is getting crystal clear. I know I've said it a ton of times, and I'm not the only one out there on the internet saying this as well, but we have to really understand this hormonal chaos that we have created. So this is between our emotional labor that we have been experiencing for multiple decades. For some of us, it's just been, a good decade. For some of us, we're working into a couple decades of just this load. There's been a mental load that there's no shortage for most women. And it's not just the task, right? Like, how many of us stress out about the task? We stress out about all the things that we have to do. And this is where it's going to impact you from more of a mental standpoint, from like what cortisol is doing, what sleep is doing, what hunger, decision fatigue. I mean, how many of us have to make every decision for every person? And, sometimes I get super like, I cannot plan one more meal. Like, I need a break. And then we also we have our metabolism absolutely changes, especially if we are not progressively resistance training. So high achieving women are often the most hormonally depleted women. And so, okay, this is where it does make sense. We can make it make sense because if you've gained weight, especially in your midsection, if you're having the night sweats, I know I personally was, the fatigue, the anxiety, the overall loss of muscle, that I don't feel like myself. I know for myself, it was absolutely when I was staring in the mirror and I was just like, who is this? And it was just this look in my eyes that I was like, man, it's like my soul is just empty. And that was something where I was like, man, have I like lost myself? And I had to have a very, very real coming to Jesus moment with myself that I was like, man, girl, you are absolutely losing yourself. And this is when I said, you know what? I got to start really figuring this out. And this is what led me down my own path and this honestly was when I was 38, I was at crossroads with how I was feeling. I was working in a capacity that was no longer sustainable. Our kids were young. We were moving into the second house that we reluctantly had to build because the first one we had to sell back to the builder. And I mean, it was just no shortage of stress. And the thing that I know is every woman has a version of my story. And then, we went into the pandemic, had to shut down our business. It's just all the things. And so it was no shortage of stress. And this is where it's something where like I distinctly remember just staring at the mirror, looking at my body in such disgust and, take it for what it is. I'm just going to tell you how I felt. This isn't how maybe you personally feel, but I just was like, how have I let myself go this far? And it was a multitude. It was decades. It was the buildup. It was the having young kids. And it was just something where I finally said to myself, hey girl, get your shit together. Now, getting my shit together required a different strategy. And this is honestly what led me to create the program that I have now and how I serve women now. And it's all in the respect that we have to balance out our hormones naturally. When I finally realized that at 38, having night sweats is not normal, okay? Having zero libido is not normal. And I thought my libido was fine. And it just was that I don't feel like myself. Certainly clothes didn't fit. And I mean, I wear Lycra for a living, so like it should fit. But when your Lycra gets tight, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And so what I know for most women is muscle is going to be your missing ingredient. So from your 30s and your 50s, you will lose on average 3 to 8% of your muscle every single decade if you don't properly strength train. Now, don't tell me that you've got some cute app, you're doing, a 7-day split or whatever crazy thing I've heard lately, or you've got this YouTube 30-day challenge that you're doing, or whatever latest P90X has put out. I think it's called Body now or something, Bodhi, or I don't even know. But that's not what I'm talking about, okay? I need you in the gym using some decent weights. Most women, if you're going to work out from home, you're going to need between 5 and 25, and you're probably going to push past that as well. And especially in some of our leg movements, okay? And it is going to require potentially going to a gym again if you don't have access to heavier stuff. And this is where I know what a woman wants from a look, but also from a balancing of your hormones and what it takes. So muscle is the single biggest metabolic asset for women in our midlife. The difference between you aging really, really well and loving your look is your resistance training and then the food to support the resistance training. And without your muscle, our hormones cannot balance. Insulin is absolutely impacted by your muscle. And when your fat stalls and your energy crashes, this is because you don't have enough muscle on your body. I remember this was years ago. I was going to hot yoga, and I hate yoga. Just full disclosure, I am not a yogi. I have no desire to ever go to yoga ever again. And I get it, right? There's a multitude of reasons people go to yoga, and so no, like, hey, just because Arin doesn't care for it, that it's all good. But I remember hugging the instructor, and she hugged me and she goes, "Oh my God." She's like, you're strong. She was like, "Whoa." She goes, "I'm used to hugging all these women and they're like frail little." And I'm like, yeah, that's called muscle. Now, granted, I had too much fat on my body at that point, but that's muscle. Okay. And you can feel it when you hug an aging person and they're just skin and bones. That's what's happening. But the cool thing is you can absolutely mitigate this. I remember understanding atrophy, which is muscle wasting at its finest. When I had gone into the hospital to have our son, I was in some really, really killer shape, especially for a pregnant woman. And I mean, I was back squatting 135. I was deadlifting, I don't even know, something crazy, literally the week that I delivered him. And I mean, I had great muscle on me. And so now, granted, I went through 55 hours of labor and you cannot eat during that time. Let's just say when I finally got settled in my room and I took a shower for the first time, and I have this image ingrained in my head, I looked down at my legs and I was like, well, who the hell's legs is that? And it took me a hot second, but I looked down and I was like, whose legs are those? Because I was not used to not having the muscle, but the amount of stress that 55 hours, that toll that it took on my body, the infection that I had, I mean, it's insane what happened to my body. Can you imagine if I didn't have the muscle on my body? Can you imagine how I would have felt? What would have happened post? Now, side note, there's always a silver lining. So I had really, really big calves. So I've always had really, really like obnoxiously big calves. This is from years of running. And that's the only thing I can explain it. Well, long story short, when you atrophy the way I atrophied, guess what? Calves atrophied as well. Guess what? Now I can wear tall boots. So there's always a silver lining, right? I was literally one of those women that could never buy tall boots because they wouldn't fit my calf. Now, honestly, I know you can buy the bigger, but I just never did it because I couldn't get them on because my calves were so big. So there's always an upside to it, right? So without our muscle, we cannot balance our hormones the way we want to. And cardio will never fix this. Strength training does. My heart still goes out every time I go to our commercial gym that we go to. I see all the cardio pieces just getting abused. And I'm like, man, you don't really need to do that. You don't have to do that. Now, granted, there's rhyme and reason for doing certain bouts of cardio, but so many people spend so much time, and I get it. Listen, I've been there before, but lifting is going to do more for your body. And so here's something else that we have to speak into for all of my driven women is this discipline burnout. So ambitious women are disciplined. You're disciplined everywhere else in your life but you, okay? And so you're consistent in work, but you're not with your own body. And so this is where we have such an identity conflict that I'm successful in this part of my life. Why can't I figure this out? This is a conversation that I have with women all the time because they're like, well, what gives, Arin? Like, I'm so confused, and they almost feel shame, frustration. And this is honestly what I feel holds most women back from getting the proper coaching and support. And so here's what happens is you don't trust yourself first off, especially when you get on a call with someone like me and I ask you to make an investment in yourself. You're like, listen, I've failed so many diets before, and you think you're the problem, right? When you realize that you have done all these things trying to figure this out, like how the heck does this woman have it all figured out? Well, I do. Okay. I've been doing this for 2 decades. I'm in this space myself and literally in the best shape I have ever been in. So the thing that we can't think about is all the restriction. That's one thing that I know women are always thinking about is restriction. And we really need to think about more consistency. Because if you can be disciplined and excel in one area of your life, it is proof that you can excel in another. So when you ask for help, it is not weakness. This is truly leadership. You're saying that you're just as important as everyone else. But here's what's the most important thing that I work with women is your identity. There has to be a shift in you, who you are. And this is one of the biggest secret sauces that I do in my program is I'm helping you put yourself first. I'm stopping your hustle culture. I'm helping you gain control. Okay. And so what happens is we start identifying with a new version of ourselves, but it's scary. You haven't done this work before. And I know that because I had to personally do this work myself. So this is how I put together my program because number one, I know we need to reset your foundation, balance your hormones naturally. Step 2, we get you into rapid fat loss or recompositioning your body. I know what's possible for you. Then step 3 is we have to get you into the health optimization point. I want you to get into maintenance. I want you to have new goals. Can you imagine having a new goal? This is what's possible. So listen, your body is asking for something different. You're not stuck. You're transitioning into a stronger, wiser version of yourself that when you go all in and you ask for the right coaching and support, not some cute, app like that's $9.99 or $19.99, when you actually invest in yourself, this is when all my ambitious women understand the truth that you haven't hit the wall, just didn't have the right solution.